The Environmental Protection Agency is moving to repeal the landmark finding that greenhouse gases are a threat to public health. That 2009 finding is the basis under the Clean Air Act for the ability to regulate emissions from cars, power plants, and other sources. Joining us now for more is the head of the Environmental Protection Agency, Lee Zeldin. Mr. Zeldin, thank you so much for your time tonight. The EPA moved to end the endangerment rule this week. Simply put, repealing the rule, in your words, will be, quote, the largest deregulatory action in the history of America. Walk us through why you decided to take this action.
Okay, first off, there's been a lot of development with Supreme Court precedent and decisions over the course of the last few years. I would mention Loper Bright overturning the Chevron doctrine, West Virginia versus EPA, Michigan versus EPA, and other cases as well. The major policy doctrine also factoring in here, where agencies like the EPA can't anymore take creative liberty in interpreting aspects of federal statute how we want to put forth our own major policy, economic, impactful regulations. And in this case, you're talking about trillions of dollars of regulations that ended up following after the 2009 endangerment finding. So that's first and foremost. And with regards to the Loper Bright decision, when you take that next step of going back and looking at an interpretation of Section 202 of the Clean Air Act, which was done when the original endangerment finding was found, instead of following the way EPA used to do it, of looking at local and regional impacts to human public health and welfare, that wouldn't have worked for the endangerment finding. They wouldn't have been able to reach it. So they decided to take the creative liberty of justifying it as combating global climate change. Well, that's not in Section 202 of the Clean Air Act. And also, instead of looking at each individual emission, studying it to decide carbon dioxide individually, methane individually, when looking at mobile source pollution, what they did was and mobile source emissions, they took carbon dioxide when mixed with several other well-mixed gases. And in this case, they actually factored in well-mixed gases, which is called the greenhouse gases, that aren't even emitted from mobile sources. So once they did that, they didn't draw a straight line and say that endangers public health and welfare. Instead, what they said was that it contributes to climate change, global climate change. Doesn't say it causes it, it says it contributes. They didn't say how much. All we know is that they were saying it was north of zero. And then they were saying the global climate change ends up being an endangerment to public health and welfare. So for those tracking at home, those are a lot of different mental leaps. And in order to reach that decision, you would have to creatively interpret the language of Section 202 of the Clean Air Act, which these recent Supreme Court decisions make a very clear message, send a very clear message to agencies like the EPA. You just can't do it.
So former Vice President Al Gore said the EPA's announcement ignores the blindingly obvious reality of the climate crisis and sidelines the EPA's own scientists and lawyers in favor of the interests and profits of the fossil fuel industry. Your response, is this about profits over safety?
Well, listen, the former vice president would want, first off, the answer is no. And the former vice president would want us to ignore the Supreme Court decisions, would want us to ignore the major policy doctrine. The former vice president would want us to play along with all those mental leaps and the trillions of dollars of regulations that follow. The former vice president would want us to go along with a mandate that would force Americans to have electric vehicles and all the other regulations that follow, because the endangerment finding done in 2009, while it was focused on mobile source pollution, they then use it to then start regulating the heck beyond just vehicles, but also stationary sources, airplanes, and the economic cost is significant. The former vice president would want to ignore any aspect of the science from 2009 that proved to not be accurate. The former vice president wouldn't want us to be going out to involve the American public. The endangerment finding hasn't had a public comment period since it was finalized. And we're not saying at the Trump EPA that we're just making this decision and we don't care what the American public thinks. This is a proposal that now goes out to public comment. We want to engage the American public. That's part of this. That is part of this republic, part of this process, and something that we respect. So I can't prejudge the outcome. We are putting a proposal out because that's how the process started. It's just over 300 pages in the proposal that we put out yesterday. About half of that is a preamble, and we encourage the media and members of Congress and the American public to read it and to participate in that public comment period. I can't prejudge the outcome. After the public comments come in, then we'll finalize the decision.
Do you believe that planet-warming greenhouse gases do not pose a threat to public health?
Well, listen, first off, it's a question that I've answered, including during my confirmation hearing. The climate has been always changing, and in responding to questions, I was explaining how greenhouse gases trap heat. We were analyzing that aspect of this conversation. A lot of what the preamble and the proposal that went out is focused on the legal aspects of it from many different angles. There is a discussion as it relates to the science. There was some very pessimistic views that were relied upon to say that come 2025 that there would be a lot more extreme evolution of the impacts of climate change by now. The good thing is that we're able to go through this process in 2025 without having to be stuck in 2009, relying on assumptions that in some cases proved to be inaccurate, specified inside of the proposal that we put out. We could deal with the realities of what we actually know now in 2025, and that's a good thing.
Do you think that there are levels of carbon dioxide that are problematic for the planet when it comes to warming?
So first off, I think it's important that we're all honest that carbon dioxide is essential for our planet life. Too often people want to talk about carbon dioxide as if it is this pollutant that doesn't have any benefits. We see positive impacts because there is carbon dioxide. Some people will respond and say, well, why don't we just, if we lock the administrator inside of a tank and we just fill it up with carbon dioxide, let's see what happens. Well, yeah, if you put somebody inside of a tank and you fill it up with water, see what ends up happening over the course of time. It doesn't mean that we should be saying that water is an endangerment to public health and welfare and then have trillions of dollars of regulations that follow and then regulate out of existence entire sectors of our economy and cause economic pain to our country. The other thing as we're looking at the science is to look at how emissions in this country have gone down. Look at while innovation's been up inside of this country and emissions have been down globally, they just continue to rise because it isn't just the U.S. here on this planet, and for us to be tying our own hands behind our back and ignoring the reality that is happening in other countries elsewhere has also proved to be foolish, which has been part of my criticism since the Paris Climate Accords first came out, was where the United States was signing up for so many strict restrictions while other nations like China and India were doing so much less. Right now, China is putting baseload power online like coal. And, there are people here who have been in charge of the government until recently who have been trying to put new regulations out through the EPA to eliminate the coal industry and to eliminate other sectors of our energy economy. And the fact is we need more baseload power. So all of this is important for us to be painting a full picture and not just cherry picking certain facts. Let's put it all out there. Let's be honest with each other, be honest with the American public, and have a conversation here to reach the right decision at the end of it. And again, right where I started, as I analyzed the recent Supreme Court decisions, I would say that if the American public and Congress wants the EPA to be regulating greenhouse gases, then they could amend Section 202 of the Clean Air Act to specifically say it, to leave the vacuum to the extent that they have it, where EPA is able to go through all of these different mental leaps to reach the endangerment finding. It's something that the Supreme Court says the EPA should not be doing. So the most durable solution, the one that could withstand the test of time, whether we're talking about this or so many other topics, if you have an issue with regulatory ping pong, is just have Congress legislate rather than having bureaucrats come into federal agencies and then just deciding that they're going to fill up vacuums in the law, ambiguity in the law, however they see fit to meet that political moment. Instead, we're going to interpret statutes strictly. That's our job. That's what the Supreme Court made very clear.
So I hear what you're saying with regard to the court's perception about the EPA and the job. The EPA's core mission, as I understand it, is to ensure Americans have clean air, land, and water. So how do you square that mission with the regulatory rollbacks that will lead to more pollution?
Yeah, what an important question. So EPA's core mission, protecting human health and the environment. We believe at the Trump EPA that we must, and we believe that the American public has been demanding that we both protect the environment and grow the economy. We believe that we can do both. We will do both. We must do both. That's our choice. Now, we put out a lot of different announcements over the course of my first 6 months as administrator of EPA. The one that I'm most proud of, the best one in my opinion, was the 100th day of President Trump's term in office. We put out 100 major environmental actions that the EPA is proud of accomplishing over the course of those 100 days. And that was a pace that motivated us to continue to keep after the 100th day. And we've continued to notch those victories. Like, for example, the end of last week, I was in Mexico City signing an international agreement with Mexico for a permanent 100% solution to end the Tijuana raw sewage crisis that's been plaguing millions of Southern California residents now for decades. So whether it's the LA wildfires or increasing water quality standards in Pennsylvania, we continue to make decisions that continue to improve, protect the environment. What we're not going to do is say the only way to protect the environment is to strangulate the economy. We're not going to accept that it's a binary choice and we only have to choose, and we only can choose one or the other. We do choose both, and we believe that's what the American public demanded, and we apply common sense, and that we heard. And I mean, speaking from what I observed in my travels across the country last fall, I heard it loud and clear. There are a lot of Americans who are struggling with economic pain, and they want those who are in Washington, who are entrusted with power, to be cognizant of it. So there's so many different agencies that are out there with different equities and different missions. We all have to be cognizant and apply what the American public demands, and that is to help make it easier to survive in the United States, make it easier to thrive, to be prosperous, to achieve the American dream. And at the EPA, we want to do our part.
And so quickly before you go, a lot of Americans have no idea what the temperature is of the planet or how much it's increasing globally. But Americans have certainly seen an increase in wildfires, heat waves, destructive storms, the deadly flooding that we just witnessed in Texas. You yourself are from a coastal community on Long Island that's struggling with rising sea levels that are linked to global warming. Are you concerned that humanity's actions today could put entire parts of cities like New York, Miami, Houston underwater?
Well, there's a lot there in your question. First off, on the wildfires, part of our announcement from March 12th is to look at the PM 2.5 regulation. Another part of that announcement from March 12th is to look at the exceptional events rule. Another aspect of our announcement separately was with regards to state implementation plans and a modification of the Good Neighbor rule, where we saw in the past state implementation plans were rejected in favor of a federal implementation plan. We should be advancing forest management. We should empower states, give them the ability to be able to protect against wildfires without being put into a position where they're non-attainment and losing out on federal funding. I come from an area on Long Island where we have experienced rising coastal waters. There are other parts of the country that have had their own unique experiences. We have to be honest and factual about the realities. If we want to tackle and we want to talk about the science, let's talk about all of it. And in this particular case, that's an aspect of this 45-day public comment period that's going on. We're going out soliciting comment as it relates to the legal aspect of whether or not EPA has this power. And we're out there soliciting comment on the science part of this as well. And again, if Congress and the American public wants the EPA to be regulating the heck out of greenhouse gases, it shouldn't be left with vague language for creative interpretations of the law. It should be something where there should be a debate and a vote inside of Congress so that there is, it's built into statute and these major policy decisions aren't made by these agencies. Trillions of dollars of regulations that have been enacted. Who knows how many trillions of dollars more? We saw this trajectory where it might start with an electric vehicle mandate out of the Biden EPA, out of states like California. Next, they'll be telling people what kind of lawnmower they should be able to buy. And I come from a state in New York where they ban the safe extraction of natural gas. They haven't been approving new pipelines. They won't allow the gas hookups to new construction. They've set climate goals that they know, that the state leaders know that they are not going to be able to reach. But in trying to reach it will cause economic pain for people who can least afford it. What's the consequences? Well, New York and California end up competing for which state leads the country in outmigration. The beneficiaries? States like the Carolinas, Tennessee, Texas, and Florida, and elsewhere. So again, it's really important for us to be having a full conversation with the American public. I'm not going to be here saying that I'm going to decide this on my own without a process with the American public. That's something that I'm eager to go through. I don't shy away from. We want to make the right decision at the end of it.
EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin, we thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you.